Welcome to the Hockey Writers Maple Leafs Lounge, a weekly show from our Toronto Maple Leafs writing crew, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, prospects, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, our team covers everything that happens with the blue and white. Come on in and pull up a chair. Welcome to the Maple Leafs Lounge.
And welcome back to the Maple Leafs Lounge. I am your host, Peter Baracchini, and I'm joined by Alex Hobson, but also you might see a new face here. We got Julian Mongillo, our Edmonton Oilers writer, but also a resident Maple Leafs fan. So we got him on the show. Julian, thanks for coming on and joining the Maple Leafs Lounge. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Peter. Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be aboard. It's good to have actually covering my own city that I live in, being able to watch the games at a normal time instead of that West Coast time, because those late nights are killing me. So happy to be here.
Perfect. We love to have another voice of the Maple Leafs on this program. And before we get into the show, be sure to sign up for morningskate.io, the daily newsletter from the Hockey Writers, where you get the latest news, updates, facts, trivias, you name it. You get it all. You will not be disappointed once you sign up for it. All you got to do, put your email in and get those updates. Simple as that. So before we get into the big news that happened late last night, I just want to get, your thoughts on the game last night versus the St. Louis Blues. Not the best effort considering they came off a really dominating win against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Julian, what did you think of that game?
Well, to start off, I just think that they had a lot of energy coming in, get fans back in the building. So I think they were able to feed off of that at points in the game. It just felt like they were a little bit behind foot off the gas for too long in portions of that game, that it ended up costing them, certain plays and stuff like that throughout the game. They went parts of they looked lethargic, a little bit slow to the net, didn't really protect in front of their net, or keep the Blues to the outside and try and defend well. So they had spurts of where they were good and they had some chances, but Husso was really good. He's been one of the best goalies in the league, for the second half so far. So credit to them, and it's a tough team. So it kind of good measuring stick game. So hopefully they can get the next one.
Alex, do you agree with Julian there?
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those games where thankfully the Leafs don't have too many of these anymore compared to last season anyways, but it was one of those games where like he said, the defensive breakdowns cost them. On a positive note, it was nice to see William Nylander get the monkey off his back and pot 2 goals. He's obviously been in a little bit of a dry spell lately, but it's kind of gone under the radar because of how great Matthews and Marner have been. So it was nice to see Willie get a goal, and hopefully John Tavares is next to follow suit, because I know he's been getting some chances, and he's a little bit snake bitten right now as well. So hopefully a better effort on Monday against the Habs.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me too is they didn't handle the pressure well, especially from the forecheck of the Blues. Too many times their puck management wasn't well. Turnovers at the blue line, try to swat it out, putting the puck in an open area where there was no one there. I think they do a really good job in trying to avert that and counter that. It's just the 2 games that really stand out for me where they didn't do well were against the Blues, both away and here. So obviously, again, one game, you really can't, fault them too much based on where they are in the standings, but, still a lesson to learn from and try and get that consistency should they come across this down the road.
Yeah, I thought even Matthews was a little bit feeling those effects from that post that he caught in the mouth the other day. So I know he kind of looked a little bit out of it, which is understandable. And Campbell has been struggling a lot lately since the second half started. So hopefully he can kind of get back, or maybe give a little bit of a rest and get Peter in there.
Absolutely. Again, Baracchini's going to be huge down the stretch for the next month or so. Now to the news that, happened late last night. And just for a little rewind, last week, Elliotte Friedman basically dropped the news on 32 Thoughts in the intermission that the Toronto Maple Leafs were shopping Nick Ritchie or trying to get him moved and having a deal in place. Fast forward to last night, or during the second intermission of the Blues game, he drops a little tidbit saying that, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in on Lyubushkin. He wasn't dressed, and there was something brewing between the two teams right there. 2 hours later, we get the call and the confirmation. Lyubushkin and Ryan Dzingel from the Arizona Coyotes to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for Nick Ritchie and a 2022 third round pick, or if I'm not mistaken, it is their choice of the pick. Let me see it here. Third round pick in 2023 or second round pick in 2025. At the Coyotes' discretion, their pick, their call. Alex, what was your initial thought on this deal? Yay or nay? Great deal or bad deal?
I would say definitely a yay on this deal. And I saw a couple of people that were a little, I wouldn't say against the trade, but they weren't overly excited about it. You look at Lyubushkin, and he's not really much of an offensive contributor. And Ryan Dzingel's had a couple of tough seasons in a row. But I really like this trade mostly because the Leafs were able to not only shed Nick Ritchie's contract without retaining any salary, they were also able to get assets in return. And there was some chatter over the past couple of days that if the Leafs wanted to move Nick Ritchie, then they would probably have to throw in a second or a third round pick to sweeten the pot. So I was expecting we were going to see a Patrick Marleau type of trade where, they don't really get anything in return. The whole point is just to get rid of Ritchie. But in my opinion, they solved one of their needs for bottom pairing physical defenseman, kind of like a Zach Bogosian type. I think Lyubushkin will bring that. And Ryan Dzingel, he hasn't played on a playoff team since before COVID. So I think it would be interesting to get him into the lineup for a couple of games and see what he can bring, because he has the potential to be an energy guy. And once upon a time, he did score 25 goals in a season. So in that sense, I think it's a good trade. And I think the bottom line is just the fact that the Leafs were able to solve that Nick Ritchie issue without giving up any recent picks. You look ahead to 2023 and 2025, a lot of stuff can happen between now and then. So more than anything else, I think that the trade was good in the sense that they were able to shed that salary and bring in two players that could serve as good depth for the playoffs. And if Dzingel doesn't work out in Toronto, you can bury his contract in the AHL. And Lyubushkin, I think he's got a spot on this team for the rest of the year. He's got some pretty good defensive numbers on a very bad Arizona Coyotes team. And I think if you put him alongside a guy like Rasmus Sandin, then you'll really see the best version of him. And I think he plays a style of game that Leaf fans are really going to like.
Yeah, interesting to note that Ryan Dzingel, half of his goals this season have come against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, let's just get that one out of the way. Julian, obviously big addition, as Alex mentioned, really solid, third pairing defenseman, could possibly move up into the lineup too. He has played big minutes with Jacob Chychrun this year, but what does this mean for the spots that, Travis Dermott and Justin Holl occupy, where Dermott was always on the outside looking in, Hall's been inconsistent. What do you make of this trade and how this may impact their future going forward?
Well, slow clap to Kyle Dubas, because I think the trade was great. I think the way he's able to move and manipulate assets is really something to watch, because this guy just freed up $2.5 million in cap space next season, where you're going to need every dollar to re-sign some key guys, right? And make some moves. So great on him to be able to do that. And you're bringing in, like Alex said, pieces that are going to help you win now, which is great. It's kind of a logjam though now on defense. So that's going to make things interesting, because they have guys like Holl and Dermott, like you mentioned. And I really think that the idea of bringing in Lyubushkin is to create even more depth than the team already has on defense. And I think it's going to be key going down the stretch. I like the rotation of guys that they're having in. Everybody's staying fresh. Everybody knows their role. And I think it's working really well thus far, but there's too many chefs in the kitchen. And it's getting to that point where something's going to need to be done. Although I don't think it's kind of the right move, because you don't really want to ever move assets out that you're going to need, especially down in the playoffs. I like Lyubushkin's game, like you guys were saying. I think he brings an element that they don't already have to the blue line. But I think Dermott's kind of might be the odd one out. I know Liljegren, they can kind of send it back down, so at least they can make some moves. But there's a roster spots that need to be created, and someone's going to have to go the other way.
Definitely interesting what's going to happen. And I'm looking over to what Rasmus Sandin in all this. Yeah, he's been on the third pairing. Yeah, he may have a really great stay-at-home defensive pairing. And even Lyubushkin's pretty good in transition too, especially when he's blocking plays and breaking things up. The Maple Leafs have the speed and the counterattack to, pick up the loose puck and then go in and transition into the offensive zone. But if you hang on to Dermott, Sandin is played on the right-hand side. So that gives Sheldon Keefe another option. Do you go with a Muzzin Sandin pairing and keep Dermott and Lyubushkin as your third and Hall as the seventh defenseman? We've seen Keefe go to the, lineup juggle quite a bit. We've seen him experiment with some players. So maybe obviously that Sandin situation was a little bit different because of the whole Brooks and Liljegren situation, which we will get to later on. But I mean, a lot of options, especially with Lyubushkin in the fold right now, who can play, in a second pairing role if need be. So whether Sandin's on the left with Lyubushkin or Muzzin, I think it's going to play out well for him. Definitely something to look out for as well.
Just to correct myself real quick, by the way, I said that Dzingel was a 25 goal scorer. His career high is 23. So he's scored in the ballpark of 20 to 25 goals before. I just wanted to clear that up.
No problem at all.
I love the depth that he brings. That's for sure. I think it gives him a nice little scoring option in the bottom six. And I think if you could put him on Spezza's line, I think it gives him a little bit of guy to be creative with and maybe a little bit higher skill than he's used to playing with right now. So I think that'll be good for him. And be good to help the bottom six in scoring. But what would you guys do on defense? Like, do you guys have preferred lines that you think, or pairings, that you guys would kind of roll out there to start?
The way I see it right now, I think that both Jake Muzzin and Ilya Lyubushkin need a guy who can move the puck. So assuming the Leafs, I personally think that I don't think they're done improving the defensive core. I wouldn't be surprised if Dubas, he still has a first round pick to work with. He still has all his top prospects available. I wouldn't be surprised if he made another move for a defenseman, maybe someone to really go in the top four and stay there. But if the Leafs kept the players that they have right now, I would probably go something along the lines of Riley Brody top pairing. Don't change anything there. I'd probably go Sandin and Lyubushkin, and then Muzzin and Liljegren. That way, Jake Muzzin and Ilya Lyubushkin, Sandin and Liljegren are both. Yep, they're both puck movers. They both have a guy that, they can trust to rush the puck and create some offensive chances and be able to focus on their own defensive game. Muzzin hasn't really been able to do that with Holl this year, so hopefully he gets a guy who. Hopefully, playing a little more often with Muzzin or with Liljegren, it'll help him out and maybe get him to somewhat find his game.
And maybe the sheltered minutes may help Muzzin and Holl in that regard too. Again, they've struggled quite a bit this year, and hopefully they can try and turn things around as we inch closer to the grueling grind that is the stretch for the playoffs. And speaking of the trade deadline, obviously this move just happened. Big one for the Maple Leafs. They started their shopping early, but what are some other deadline targets or one name that really stands out in your mind that you would love to see the Toronto Maple Leafs try and acquire? Julian, what do you think?
Well, Alex already mentioned it. The first round pick, I think that's definitely going to be moved. It'll leave them pretty shorthanded with picks this year. I think if they do move that first round pick, they'll only have a second and a seventh. I think the seventh is conditional actually. So, we're pretty all in if you want to say that. So, I'm assuming he's going to move it, but I think what Kyle Dubas does well is he's able to group that first round pick and get things of multiple things of need back in a trade. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to get some sort of defenseman with a top six forward, because I think they do still need to do that top six forward into the group to help push everybody down and add even more depth than they already have. And if you're going to do that, you do that with your first round pick and probably a broker in order to facilitate a deal. Along those lines, I really like Max Domi. I don't know why. I would love to see him back in blue. We're number 28. It's the only way he can join the team. And I think just the energy he would give and the ability to still perform in a top six role, I think that's really good. And I think he would want to be here. So I really like that. And that they have that relationship, right? Kekalainen and Dubas, they pulled a deal for Foligno last year. So I think that could really fit. So I'm all aboard for Max Domi.
I don't know, a deal with the Columbus Blue Jackets involving a first round pick. That's we're going into dark territory right there. But no, Max Domi does seem like a really good option, and he has had success in the past on a really good, capable offensive team. So we'll see what happens with that. Alex, what do you think?
Julian kind of stole my answer there. I would have loved to see Max Domi in a Leafs jersey. I actually said that the other night because there's not really. I found that when it comes to the Leafs making trades, it's very, very seldom that the Leafs pull off a trade that insiders have been speculating on for all this time. Like, not Lyubushkin's name was thrown around here and there, but there was never really any traction towards that trade before last night. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dubas pulled a trade like that out of his hat and just surprise Leafs faithful with Max Domi. But I think the bottom line, like Julian, you make a good point saying you want someone to boost that top six, especially the Tavares Nylander line. They've been slacking a little bit lately, aside from Nylander's 2 goals last night. So it would be nice to get them a bona fide top six left winger to play alongside those guys. And I keep thinking back to Dubas's quote about wanting to acquire somebody with term. And, if the Leafs do plan on going all in and making a big move, I could see something like, and Peter, I know you reworked the piece that you posted today, but I wouldn't be surprised to, see something like maybe a Travis Konechny and a Justin Braun combo. I think that would be that's one of those forward defensemen pairings that the Leafs could go after. You look at maybe, Brandon Hagel, Calvin DeHaan in Chicago, JT Miller and Luke Schenn in Vancouver. There are a lot of those combos that the Leafs could maybe try and find a package to make work. I would personally love to see Travis Konechny in a Leafs jersey. I think he would be a welcomed addition to that top six forward core. But either way, I do believe after making that move and now with their first round pick and with their top prospects on the table, I don't think Dubas is done making moves. I still think he wants to get someone to term. So
Travis Konechny is at 5.5 for the next 3 seasons after this. So, I mean, great move. And I do see why bringing in Justin Braun, who has some mobility and is same thing like Lyubushkin, great at with his defensive game, and the ability from Travis Konechny to be that 50, 60 point getter really probably would make a lot of sense. And, if the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't trade their second first round pick in 2015, Travis Konechny was a name that I had my eye on, but we all know what happened after that. And you brought up Brandon Hagel and Calvin DeHaan as well. I think that is a very worthy combination as well, given the fact that, Hagel has 2 more seasons after this at 1.5, really great value, having a career season. And, Frank Saravalli mentioned a first and a prospect for him. And maybe that may seem a bit too rich, but hey, if it's a price that you need to pay it up. And especially if, you want to have that Blake Coleman, that Barclay Goodrow kind of deal, which he was alluding to during that episode. So teams are looking to make that payment. Might as well pay up for it, right?
Yeah, I think the one thing, and I know I'm the one that suggested this, so it may seem like I'm kind of going back on my words, but I think the one thing that'll stop the Leafs from trading for Brandon Hagel is the fact that Chicago doesn't want to give him up. Yeah. Like, I think it'd be a little bit different if they were fielding calls on him and, there are a bunch of teams that were presenting offers and stuff. But what I took away from the way Frank said that on his pod was that Chicago doesn't want to move on from him, and it would really take a huge offer to pull Brandon Hagel out of Chicago. And at that point, I don't know if it'd be worth it to trade for him. I think they'd be better off looking for a guy who teams would actually be interested in shopping, like a JT Miller or a Travis Konechny or something like that. If there's a trade that works for both sides, that's there for the Leafs and Brandon Hagel, then I'd be fully into it. He's a great player, but if it's one of those things where the Leafs would have to pry him from Chicago and really just like open up the bank and fill out a blank check for Chicago to take, and then I'm not sure I'd want to make that move.
Yeah, too steep a price to kind of pay for a little bit of an unknown. But I like what you said about Braun. I think they need a guy who's going to bring experience to that back end, right down the playoffs. Like, if you look at it the way it is now, there's not much experience aside from what Riley and Brody really have in Muzzin, right? So if you're the Leafs, I think that's top priority, is bringing in someone who's a veteran presence that can, at least, shoulder some of that bigger load and you can be a little bit more reliable with. So I think that's going to be crucial in a defenseman that Dubas looks to acquire now. But the Konechny would be nice here. And I think that cap hit's very affordable for what he can provide.
Mm-hmm. And that is why we are not insiders. We just talk about it. I wish we had the kind of connections that everyone has so we could talk about this later on. But
the insiders talk about the insiders talk about the teams. We talk about the insiders. It's a fun little it's a fun little cycle here on Maple Leafs Lounge.
Great discussion all around, no matter what. Just resetting the show right now. Be sure to sign up for morningskate.io, the daily newsletter from the Hockey Writers, where you get your latest news, updates, facts, trivia, and everything else fun involved that will brighten up your day. You will not be disappointed once you subscribe to it. I can attest that it is absolutely worth it. It's fun. Go out and subscribe right away. getting back into the show, this week was very interesting considering the fact that, and I feel bad for Adam Brooks, where he started off the season with the Maple Leafs, waivers, Canadians, waivers, Vegas, put back on waivers, back with the Maple Leafs. Then a day later, put back on waivers to send him down. Timothy Liljegren was also sent down, put on waivers, got picked up by the Winnipeg Jets, and it was just a circus for him. And I really feel bad for what happened being with the movement and everything, but hopefully he finds a home in Winnipeg permanently. Julian, what was your take on that? And was this just sort of like a feeling out process of where they were cap wise? Should a move come where they bring in Brooks, waive him, and then waive Liljegren?
I mean, Brooks has really racked up the air miles, so I mean that's a positive for him. But I mean, it's unfortunate because I think the Leafs liked them a lot and they really wanted to keep him, and he was just kind of a casualty of them having to move contracts in order to make everything work with the cap. So it's unfortunate because I think he's a good energy guy, and it's just I don't know if there's really a role for him, especially bringing guys like Dzingel now. And I don't think the need for him is really there. I think they would love to have him back in the organization and they like what he brings. But I mean, it's all about roster movement and how you make the cap work. So I'm not surprised. And apparently everybody wants him now. So he's a hot commodity, which is good for him. But hopefully he can land somewhere and stick. But in terms of a fit for the Leafs, I don't think they would ever been able to kind of get him in the lineup. You even got Clifford down there and you got a little bit more depth with Dzingel now. So, it's just kind of a cap casualty, I'll call him.
Alex, you feel the same way?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I feel bad for Adam Brooks more than anyone else because he's just constantly on the move. And, I'm sure he's probably had to stay in 4 different hotel rooms in the past week or something
Easily.
like that. So yeah, so it's an unfortunate situation for him because obviously having to move and basically live in your suitcase for a week while you figure out where you're going to be playing. I'm sure he'd rather just stick with one AHL team more than rather than have to hop between 4 different NHL teams throughout the span of a week. So in that sense, I feel bad for him. But yeah, same as what Julian was saying. I mean, the Leafs are just at a point now where as much as they could use him as depth, there's just not really any room for him, especially after bringing in Ryan Dzingel. I think at this point, I'm more or less just want Brooks to find success somewhere and really find a home where he can carve out a role and stay there permanently, because he's done a lot of moving around over the past couple of months, and he can be an effective player. I think if the Leafs didn't have such a logjam of forwards, I think that he'd be an effective fourth liner, third liner. I think you could get away with putting him anywhere in the bottom 6. So yeah, hopefully he settles and finds a team that'll keep him for the long haul.
It reminds me a little bit of like Josh Levo. He kind of bounced around, here and there, and you kind of found a home in a little bit of places here and there, and never kind of stuck because the Leafs were too deep for him.
But he never kind of stuck because of Mike Babcock. That's the short answer right there.
Yeah.
The good problem to have if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, you have ample depth, and as good as Adam Brooks was, I really wanted to see him stick like you guys. It just wasn't going to work out, and the way that the top 4 was rolling line wise, it would be hard for him to make the lineup no matter what. Moving on to the next topic at hand, and something that's been pretty noticeable this season: the improved penalty kill, or as what everyone is calling right now, the power kill, because of the fact that the Maple Leafs are super dangerous right now. This past week, they had back-to-back games with a shorthanded goal, with the result of Mitch Marner in both, or setting up both of those goals. And coincidentally, actually, I believe it was Mitch Marner on one and Morgan Riley on the other. I may need to look back at the stats, but David Kampf scored both of those goals. Alex, you are working on a piece right now focusing in on the power kill. What has made them so dangerous this time compared to previous seasons?
I think the biggest thing is that the Leafs are being aggressive on the penalty kill. And that's not something that we've really seen in the past. I know that when you're on the penalty kill, your number one focus should be playing conservative style defense and trying to protect your net and ice the puck. But what I'm seeing a lot of this year, as opposed to last year, is, you're getting guys out there who are not only good defensively, but they're speedy as well. Like Mitch Marner, Alex Kerfoot, Andrzej Kasha, when he's out there the odd time. You're getting guys, and of course David Kampf, like you just mentioned. You've got guys who can really jet the puck. And I forget who it was that pointed it out on the broadcast. I believe it was against the Kraken on Monday. But the Leafs, it's typically when you're on the penalty kill, you've got two guys covering the point, and then you've got your two defensemen taking care of things down low. But what the Leafs have been doing, they've all been swarming whoever's got the puck, and it forces them to make bad passes. It forces them to make quick decisions that don't always work out. And a lot of the time with the speed that I mentioned with all those players, and I forgot the speediest one of all, Ilya Mikheyev. When you've got that kind of speed out there, all you have to do is put yourself between the opponent and the puck. And if you can get a handle on it, you're gone. So I think a lot of it has just been the fact that the Leafs have been swarming, they've been aggressive, and they've been really pressuring their opponents into making snap decisions with the puck, whether it be throwing it on net or just trying to throw it into the corner to get the cycle going again. And I think another reason why it stuck out to me so much is because it reminds me a lot of how the Leafs looked on the power play last season. There were a lot of times last season when, the opponent's penalty kill would be so aggressive that the Leafs they wouldn't have any confidence with the puck. They'd get the puck and they'd either throw it away or they'd just be too predictable. You'd see Mitch Marner go back to that slap pass across the slot. You would see them kind of bobbling the puck a little more, and it's almost like they could never get set up because the opponent was just so aggressive. So I think the Leafs have kind of ripped a page out of what happened of the playbook of the opponents doing that to them last season, and it's working in their favor now because their penalty kill is, I believe, top 5 in the NHL right now, and they're being a lot more aggressive with it. Like, I've never seen so many shorthanded chances from a team in a season. So as long as they keep doing that, I think they're on the right track.
The Maple Leafs hired Dean Chynoweth in the offseason, and he took over for Dave Haxtell, who previously ran the defense. And you're seeing a massive overhaul of the penalty kill right now, 84.6% this season. Julian, is this an attribute to a new system and a new mentality brought in by Chynoweth?
I think the mentality's always been there, but I think the system implemented is exactly the type of way that this team is meant to kill penalties. Like, they're fast, like Alex said, they're quick, they're good with their sticks. So their ability to anticipate is really shown because they're overloading the system and waiting to pick off or bounce and get a good bounce and go the other way, right? I never, see a penalty kill come out there and say, okay, I'm thinking offense, because that's what I've been thinking when the Leafs go on the penalty kill sometimes. It's like, okay, let's go get a shorthanded goal rather than, okay, let's not let one in. And I think that's very noticeable. Like Alex said, they overload one side of the puck, force the team to make quick decisions that usually end up in mistakes or errors, and they're able to pounce on those because they're how fast they are, right? So that's great. I think the system has worked really well, and not only them in their own zone, and they're more of, instead of inviting pressure, they're pushing the pace, and it starts when they're in the neutral zone, right? They make it very tough for teams to get in, and they're good at recovering pucks that are thrown in behind them. And those breakouts are making everything more crisp and making life on defense and goaltenders much easier. And I think that's going a long way, and it's going to be a key piece in special teams come the playoffs.
The active six and getting into the lane, I think, is a big part, because when you block that shot, it also jumpstarts the attack of the forwards too. That way they can make a better stretch pass and leading to an odd man rush. So I think that awareness, that anticipation is a big part of that penalty kill as well. And going back to what I mentioned before, yes, it was David Kampf that scored both shorthanded goals, one assisted by Marner that, flashback to his London Knights days, and then Morgan Riley setting him up against the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is an area where they struggled last season, and this is something that they needed to improve on before. And even with the power play right now, we're seeing it, more consistency where it was last season, because by this time they were at a, 7-game drought and they were 0 for 40. Meanwhile, they're still potting in power play goals and capitalizing on the man advantage. And even when they're shorthanded. So special teams is going to go a long way in the playoffs, and they are succeeding in that aspect right now. That is all for this week on the Maple Leafs Lounge. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, be sure to subscribe to morningskate.io for all of your latest news updates, trivias, and everything else hockey related over at the Hockey Writers, checking out some of the graded posts that all of our writers are putting out there. Be sure to leave a comment or question down below. We love to interact with our viewers, and you know what? We may answer a question next time on the podcast, on the show. So if you have something that's on your mind, feel free to leave it and we will discuss it next week. For Alex, Hobson, Julian Mongillo, I'm Peter Baracchini, and we will see you next week on the Maple Leafs Lounge.